Facing adversity can be daunting, overwhelming, debilitating, but with the right techniques, mindset, and strategies, you can turn adversities into opportunities for growth in your business, in your personal life, in your organization, with your team, in your relationships. This video contains only tried and true techniques. There's no magical thinking here. And yes, you might be thinking, oh, this video is about turning lemons into lemonade. No, not at all. In this video, we will explore practical techniques to reframe difficulties, break down problems into manageable steps so that you can implement them in a phased or directional approach. Now let's get started. I have two techniques for you when it comes to handling adversity. But first, let me introduce myself. My name is Herdman. I'm a professional speaker. Thanks for joining us on the channel. If you would, please hit that like and subscribe button. That helps us out very much. So, two techniques that will help you overcome adversity. And actually, not just overcome it, but turn them into opportunities. First up, please make sure that you reframe all of those challenges, all of those adversities into opportunities. Now, what does that mean? Well, as you know, if you've ever attended one of my seminars or webinars, or if you've been here on the channel before, you know that we don't do magical thinking or woo-woo, although I do say if woo-woo works, well, let's do it. But this is not woo-woo. First of all, reframing. Reframing is something that has been researched and it keeps getting researched. It's something that puts us in control. It's something that we are totally in control of. You just get inside your own head and take a snapshot of what you're telling yourself and turn it around. A lot of times we challenge ourselves with negative thoughts, or maybe not even challenge ourselves, the right way to say it. We allow those negative thoughts, the rumination, the overthinking to really hijack our brains. It's all we hear. It's all that goes on up there. This is going to go bad. What if this goes sideways? I don't think this is going to work. This is absolutely horrible. This is hard. This is overwhelming. What about asking a different question? If you've watched a couple of videos here on the channel, you know that I do this one quite a bit with myself. And if you've attended a seminar or webinar, you know that it's one of my go-tos as far as recommendations to an audience full of people that want to become more resilient and handle adversities and turn them into something, and that is reframing. And that question I'm talking about, what happens if this goes great? What happens if this goes just over the top amazingly well? I mean, what happens with that? What am I going to do? That's a good place to be as far as a positive question that you might want to ponder or answer. There are sometimes you actually do want to answer that question. What if this turns into something? What if this problem, this overwhelming bit of adversity that we get hit with in mid-March of 2020, what if this turns into something bigger than I can manage? Do I have a system in place to handle the volume of business? This new business structure, do I have a way to manage it and make it profitable and to be of service to people? Those are a few questions that I've asked myself over the years since our mid-March of 2020 problems began with my business. How about this one? Why not ask yourself, what do I have to do to make it work? What should I do to make this work? And say, oh, what do we do if it goes sideways? What are the steps we're going to do what are we going to do if that happens? What do I have to do? What's in my control that I can do right now to start working on this, to make this happen? Another thing that I always recommend to audiences in helping you reframe is we like the benefits, don't we? We like the silver lining, the upside, the what's in it for me. I think that's very important to be able to do when we're sitting in the face of an adversity, setback, something that's really challenging us, that seems insurmountable at times, sometimes looking for personal gain. There's nothing wrong with that. We're not using that as in a way to manipulate others or sell others a bad bill of goods. It's simply an activity that we can do with ourselves. And we sit down and make a list of things. If this goes as planned, if I can do 2, 3, 4, 10, 12 things to make this go a certain way, What benefits will I get? Make a list of those and keep those in mind. The second thing to do, once you get your mind right, once you do a little checkup from the neck up, if you will, and reframe the story you're telling yourself, reframe those questions and statements you're saying to yourself over and over again, and turn them into a little bit more of an optimistic view. Second thing you'll want to do is break that problem down into phased or directional solution approaches. What I mean by this is a lot of times, even if we get our mind right, you do your checkup from the neck up and everything starts to go a little bit better up there, then what we do is we try to grab the bull by the horns and do everything at once. I know this. I am guilty as charged. But I have to tell you that one of the best things that I've ever done, and according to audiences and feedback and polling and surveys, one of the best things I've ever recommended to a group of people is break the problem down. Not just the problem, but when you start thinking about how I'm going to overcome this setback, this adversity, how am I going to turn it into something? If you just try to, grab the bull by the horns and start doing things, you're going to be on a fool's errand because you're just going to be all over the place. Create a systematic approach. It's called a phased or directional approach. What is a phased or directional approach? Well, let me give you some examples. Phase one, in the early days of our March 2020 problems, this would be March, April, May of 2020, I had to start with what I had. That meant a couple laptops, the cameras built in, yes, even the microphones that were built into the laptops. It wasn't, it wasn't pretty, as they say. It didn't sound pretty either. But then I realized I could get a few webcams, higher quality-ish. I was able to get a few external microphones, USB microphones, not quite to the quality of what I have now. Then I eventually got some Rode equipment. But I had to make a phased approach in moving out of that phase of working with what I had and some of the blunt tools and crude instruments of the early days of this into phase two. Phase two was obviously to set up a studio. I knew I wanted green screen. I knew I wanted multiple cams. I knew I wanted 4K mirrorless cams. I knew I needed production software. I knew I needed better audio equipment. I also knew that I needed sound dampening. That was phase two. Phase three was, of course, learning that software, learning how to set all of this up. That was what started and kicked off phase three. Of course, then came a streaming computer. I was able to get Varipoles to mount all the cameras, the multiple cameras in here. And then by that time, this would be late 2020, phase three was about to be complete as I was able to get my hands on 3 streaming 4K mirrorless webcams for streaming. Then phase four came and I got lights and more behind the scene cameras and of course the Stream Decks and Stream Deck Plus. Phase five, of course, was things to do with graphics and better use of software, external apps for polling and getting feedback from an audience. And just to kind of pull you into one of the last phases, not the last because we're still evolving. We're always moving things. We're always making iterations and improvement. But phase six was in late 2023. That's right. This started in March of 2020. And phase six took place in November of 2023. That was the installation of teleprompters. Of course, the use of AI at that time was available, and some automated programming that I was able to use in my webinars. That's just to give you an example of how this can be phased. It kept me from being overwhelmed, and it allowed me to close out certain phases and realize there was some success, there was some achievement. It also gave me a little bit of knowledge, closing out, working in one phase. For example, finishing up phase one, do I really need everything in phase two? Or were there other things I missed that I should have had in phase one that I need to add to some of the other phases? Those are just a few examples, but it reduced the overwhelm. It let me see that my effort was resulting in real progress. And I was able to turn something that in the early days of our situation that we all came up against in mid-March of 2020, I was able to turn it into a tremendous business opportunity. I've done this in ultra running. I've done this in my relationships, both business and personal. There are times we get hit with setback. First step, reframe it. see if there's a silver lining, an opportunity, a better story to tell yourself. Not like a fairy tale or a fool's errand story, but a better story. What if, instead of it going horribly, what if this continues? This is never going to be fixed. What if this goes better? What can I do to start making this better? And once you start thinking like that, sit down, make a list of benefits, and then the third step would be to do that phased or directional approach. A lot of times it's not fixable, as in flip a switch and we're all good. A lot of times we have to move forward in phases or in steps. Things may not be available to us. Sometimes it takes time to do a few things and get them to have some traction and see that they're working. That's why a phased or directional approach to turning adversities into opportunities, overcoming setback, is best done by changing your mindset, looking for the benefits, and then building a phased or directional approach to make those things happen. Folks, that wraps up this session here on my YouTube channel. As I always say, make sure you take care of yourself so you can take care of each other, and I'll see you in the next video.